Everyone's having a wonderful Sansevieria Sunday. So today I'm going to go over my Sansevieria potting mix. I use a combination of several things. And so I finally have all the stuff that I actually like to use and prefer to use. Of course, there's times I have to supplement, which I really don't like doing because when I did supplement, I actually lost two of my Sansevieria'S. Yeah, so sometimes I really don't like to supplement. And they could have been lost for something else, but I'm just going to stick with that because what I've been using for over a year now, I have over 40 Sansevieria'S, 40 plus, but they've been fine with the stuff that I've been using. And it took me a lot of research to find all the stuff. But anyhow, I'm going to do a quick haul. Now, I did my Hannah collection last Sunday. So if you want to go back, this is Sansevieria'S Series 101, where I try to do a Sansevieria on Sansevieria Sundays, and it's all about Sansevieria'S. There's nothing else on this series talking about anything else but Sansevieria'S. So I did do a Hannah collection last week, and I was at 9, and this made the 10th one. So this is a Sansevieria Emerald Star. I got her at Green Acres, Sansevieria Emerald Star for $6.50. She's pushing out so many pups, it's ridiculous. So yeah, she's a beauty. So I had her before, believe it or not, and I gave it to my daughter because I thought I had bought another one, but the other one I got wasn't no name on it. It just says Sansevieria. That's it. So once I did research after I had already given the plant away, I realized that it's a Jade Margentina, or it's also known as the Black Star. Now, the Black Star, Jade Margentina, really I call it the Jade Margentina, but it has cream coloring going through it. It's, a lot of the Sansevieria'S are kind of like duplicates, but they just come in different forms. But the Jade Margentina looks like this, but totally different. It has more of the cream color, like a white going through it almost. It goes through the middle. It's on the outskirt margins versus this one, the Emerald Star. It's just a dark green with no variegation, and the banding, the yellow banding or the gold banding, which is just the gold around the ends. And so they're total different plants, and I was not aware till I had already given it to my daughter, which I don't mind, and I'm glad I found another one because I haven't seen it in a while. So she makes the 10th Hannah. So since she missed the video, I got her yesterday. Since she missed the video, she got to have her debut. So this is my 10th different. So I have 10 different Hannah or dwarf Sansevieria'S, and I recommend these to anybody. You can have this on your desk. You can, if you don't have much room, you can collect a bunch of these. There's a whole bunch. As you see, I only have 10. There's way more. But I only have 10 varieties, 10 different ones. So if you want to have different plants, but you don't have much room, the bird's nest, kind of Sansevieria is the best. They call them stars or Hannahs, but they're just, at the end of the day, they're bird nests. That means they're dwarf size Sansevieria'S, and they don't grow very big. They get so high and that's it. So, they're very easy to take care of. These ones rot very, very easy, so you don't want to ever really water them, but probably once a month, even in the summer, once or every 2 months, because they do rot very easily. So, but other than that, they're very easy to take care of. They don't require much light, and they're just very easy So that's her, the Emerald Star. So I'm going to go ahead and get my soil stuff together now. Okay, so I start off, this is my base, we'll call it. And this is the EB Stone Organic Cactus Succulent Potting Mix. This is one of my favorite. Like for my Sansevieria'S, I've been using this for a little over a year. I had a nightmare when I first started collecting plants. I used some Miracle Grow, and all I could say, it was a nightmare for me. So this right here is something that I did research in, and then I can actually buy it at Green Acres Plant Nursery, which sometimes I don't, I can't get to them and I have to grab what I can, which I really don't like to do, supplement, because this is what I've used and my plants have grown and they love it. So, except now a year and a half, we'll say later, I have learned to add more stuff to it. But we'll get into that. So this is my base. I start off with this EB Stone Organics Cactus and Succulent. Now, if you can't get this, I recommend, I do use Epsama potting soil. I've never used their cactus mix, but you can even use that. You just want something that's very well draining, but it's really preferably up to you. I'm not going to get into all the names and stuff. I'm just going over what I use. So this is what I use, the EB Stone brand, Cactus and Succulent. Like I said, I've tried Miracle Grow, and a lot of people stand by it, but I just will not ever use that again after what I went through. I had millipedes climbing all over my house, all over my couch. It was a nightmare, is all I could say. So, and yeah, so I don't mess with that. But anyhow, this is the EB Stone brand, and I'm going to go over which they just did a change, which I'm really happy about. And they changed this bag. The bag used to be clear, but now they've changed it to this bag, which is really, I like this bag, the way, and it's all reducing carbon. It's environmental friendly. So, here are the ingredients. There's pumice rock, which is volcano rock, aged fir, aged redwood, larva rock, and sand. Those are all that's in here, which is a great combination. Let me go over. So, I'm going to go over each ingredient. Pumice, as you know, is a larva. It is it's a larva rock, which I'm going to go over that. What pumice is, I'm just going to go right now over the aged fir, aged redwood, because all the other stuff I actually have. So, aging or curing is a process in which you allow wood to dry. You can take your redwood to a kiln and have it dried in a matter of a few days, or you could age your redwood on your own. So, basically, it's aged redwood wood, which is perfect. So there's no sphagnum moss, no peat moss, and they used to have sphagnum moss and peat moss, but they just changed to this, which is perfect because peat moss and sphagnum moss, as we all know, still stays wet for a long time, and I don't think it's environmental friendly. There's a whole long story on that, but I'm just going over this right now. And then the same with aged fir bark. It's just another type of bark that's been aged, which is actually good for aeration, and as the mulch, it breaks down into like a soil, So that's basically the ingredients that's in here. So if you have access to get EB Stone Organic Cactus Succulent Mix, hey, grab it, because this is some good stuff. And they just I want to say within the last few months changed it over to, they took the peat moss and the sphagnum moss out, which is perfect. So that's my base. So let me get the next ingredient. All right, next is going to be pumice. Now, I actually bought this at my Ace Hardware. EV Stone has pumice rocks also. I either go to Ace Hardware or Green Acres for my soils amendments, and really I go to both to get my amendments, which are, like I said, hard sometimes to get to. So this is called pumice. This is your friend. I've perlite is okay, but that stuff's we all know what perlite does. It floats up when you water. It's good if you don't have pumice, and not everybody has access to pumice either. And I don't even think they deliver to a lot of places online. But if you can get access to pumice, get it. If not, then just get, supplemented with a perlite, because if I'm not mistaken, they both the same, except perlite is light and fluffy. Pumice is hard like rocks. So it's a very hard rock. Like, it is like a rock, but it's also small enough to where it's not big clunks of rocks in your soil. So let's see. I'm trying to go over each one what pumice is. So let's see. So pumice, I believe it says pumice is a type of extractive volcano rock produced when lava with a very high content of water and gases is discharged from a volcano. As the gas bubbles escape, the lava becomes frothy. When the lava cools and hardens, the result is a very light rock material filled with tiny bubbles of gas. And that's what your pumice is. This is perfect to add to any soil because it's heavy, and it does have almost like, the charcoal, holding stuff in. And but for aeration, it's very, very, very good to use. For Sansevieria'S especially, over the perlite, because the perlite is just a bunch of dust unless you get it shifted. And they do have big, huge chunks of perlite that you can buy, but I prefer pumice over the perlite. That's just my preference, because I was using perlite, trying it out, and now I have a bunch of plants with just a whole bunch of perlite sitting at the top of them, and that's pretty much it. Versus the pumice is going to fall, it's heavy, it's going to blend in through the soil, and it's not going to float to the top like the perlite. So this is the second thing that I put into the soil mix. Next, I use orchid bark. So this is the EV Stone Naturals orchid bark. A lot of people have mixed things about orchid bark. I like it to break it down. This is a medium. They have all kinds of different orchid bark. I just choose the EV Stone one, or I go through the Unigrow, which I just showed you with the pumice, and that's at the Ace Hardware. But this one I get from Green Acres Plant Nursery in Elk Grove, California. So this is good because orchid bark has a whole bunch of different things that help out. Too much of it ain't good, just a little sprinkle of it. The Sansevieria'S, it's also, we're making it very well draining, so it helps from water, it helps just loose soil, and it also doesn't make it compact and hard like sand. When you're using sand and pumice and the soil's pretty dried out because you're not watering your Sansevieria'S, you want some so it's not so hard like a cement. So I just started using orchid bark, I want to say the beginning of this year, in my potting soil, and I use this with everything. Everything I plant, I use this. So, but for my Sansevieria'S, this is the third thing that I would add, and I generally just break it up. If they're big pieces, I break it up, or I'll leave some big pieces in there too, and then I I probably don't put much into the soil. It's, so we'll say cactus mix, I want to say like 30%. This is a 10. The rest of the stuff is just going to be bits and pieces. So I really don't have no measurements. It's really preferably how much you want to use. I wouldn't use that much of this for Sansevieria'S because sometimes too much of it can hold moisture. Now your orchids that's why it's orchid bark, or your Hoyas or your aeroids, you can use a lot more than you would for Sansevieria. I would just use like a handful. I wouldn't even use a lot of this for a Sansevieria mix, but I do use it. So just a small amount of this. So this is the third thing that I'm adding into the mix. Next is your horticultural charcoal. And this is through EB Stone charcoal. And it's just broke down charcoal, I believe. Now, what it's good for, so I meant to say, you want plenty of air through the roots to breathe and get through. And so all these things are providing airy mix. That's why it's an airy, rocky mix, because if it's too squeezed or too much, it's going to squeeze the roots and they'll suffocate. So, especially since Sansevieria'S rot quickly, you want to be able to have as much air. It's basically a soilless mix. I use a soilless mix for a lot of stuff. So, but it still has, I want to say like 20%, 25%, and we'll say 75%. It's really up to you what your preference. But I myself probably use about 20 to 30%. It depends, and it just depends. And then the rest is just all these other ingredients. So charcoal, it says adding a layer of activated charcoal to the bottom of your plant pot underneath the soil. Basically, so when you're repotting, you add, or when you're making a soil mix, you want to add the charcoal to your soil. Can help your plant's health in a number. According to apartment therapy, the substance rids the soil of impurities, which is why sometimes a great health and beauty ingredient, which is why it's sometimes a great health and beauty ingredient, because people brush their teeth, they wash their face, they have the charcoal mask. This is just the rocks of the charcoal. That's something else they break down. But anyhow, it repels insects and prevents mold and odors. And it also helps the plant get the nourishment and, whatever nourishment it needs as well. So that's what charcoal is good to use in your soil mix. And I've bought the bags of Orchid mix, which has charcoal, orchid bark, and I believe perlite. But it's a ripoff because you get half of the bag and it's probably like a few pieces of charcoal in it, and the rest is a bunch of perlite. I rather buy each piece by itself. Then I can add as much as I want, and I'm getting my bang for my buck, or whatever you want to say. Like this is only $4, and this is a big bag, and I use a lot of this. This is how. Let me show you. That's how full it is when it goes right there. So it's only a little bit, this much room, versus the Orchid mix I grab if I can't get anything else. It's almost a half of a bag, and you don't get as much of the ingredients as you need. So yeah, you would have to use almost 2 bags when you can just make your own mix. And they're all seasonings, they're all ingredients that I'm using in the soil mix for the pot of gumbo for my plants. So this is charcoal. So I just said what it's for. It's just bits and chunks of charcoal, and they have nice size ones in this. EB Stone has that, but I'm sure there's a charcoal everywhere. Home Depot, I believe there's charcoal you can get on Amazon. So yeah, It's not too hard to get charcoal. Pumice is a little harder to get than charcoal is. And so that's that. So that's going to be the fourth thing that I add. The fifth thing is EB Stone horticultural sand. Sand has a lot of different benefits for your plants. Also, aeration. The you know, if you think about it, they live outside. Really, all the plants in their nature, besides epiphytes, and they have to grow on trees and they grow in rocks, and that's why orchid bark's good for Hoyas and stuff like that. But for Sansevieria'S, if you think about it, they're growing in sand and desert like African areas, and there are some that come from Asia as well, but most of them are going to be growing in this dry, very dry, desert-like type of weather. There are some tropical, but even the tropical is still going to be dry and muggy and not even probably humid like that. So sand comes from the ground. It's, so I wouldn't recommend using a whole bunch because then you don't want, once again, concrete in your soil. I just use, a light amount of this, just like I use less of the orchid bark and less of the horticultural sand for my mix. And like I said, the sand, we all know this horticultural sand is the best, the one that I use. And they're almost like little tiny rocks almost, which also help their roots breathe, add air to the ground, to the soil. Even though EB Stone has sand in it, but I still like to add just a little pinch of it myself. So that's my fifth thing. So just a second. Now, next, you're going to want to find some type of fertilizer to add, because all of those do not have fertilizer in them or any type of really nutrients in the soil. So that's where you come in with your worm casting, which I actually have some coming, which I have a bunch of plants coming in too. So I'm going to be repotting everything. And so I'm going to be adding worm castings because I really don't want to be using the liquid soils anymore, especially now they don't need it. I was giving everybody the fish and seaweed, and then also the Job's fertilizer spikes. I put all them in around spring, but now that it's turning into winter, what I'm going to do is when I just pot them up, just give them a little bit of a powdery form type of organic fertilizer. So, or the worm casting. So what you want to do is add, it doesn't matter what you add, but you want to add something to that soil. And with the liquid, you have to water it to give the soil, you got to put it in water and then water the plants. With Sansevieria'S, when you repot them, you still want them to leave them dry. You still don't want to water them. I've repotted and kept them in there still for almost a month, and then I gave them to drink. So you really have to water them to give the nutrients, versus if you put it in their soil, then they have it in there. And then when you do water it, but it's your preference. Now, the Job sticks is good for that. And my Sansevieria'S, all my plants actually like the Job sticks, which I'll probably start adding them at the end of winter, right before spring. I'll give them Job sticks because it's a slow release, just like these type of things, your, the ones that you put in your soil. So this is Biotone Starter. It's a starter plus starter plant food. And if you're going to be repotting or doing anything, this is good for cuttings, or if you're doing a repot, it helps the roots to get into the soil and start stretching and growing, and it gives it the root health. And that's what this is good for. So I'm going to be using this now, because I was using Espoma potting soil because it had a little bit of the worm castings and some other stuff in it, but I rather just know exactly what I'm putting in it. So I do have this, and then I have some worm castings on their way to me. So I'm going to be using a little bit of this and a little bit of the worm castings, and they're both organic, so it's not going to hurt the plants when I'm doing my repots. Like, I have to repot the plant I just showed you, and as you see, she's pushing out a bunch of pups. So I'll be repotting her in maybe a couple of days. I give her about a few days into the home, even though they really don't need to do all that acclimating. Sansevieria'S are tough cookies. But I'm going to be using all these ingredients for my soil mix. So once again, a rundown. As you see, this is what the last thing I'm going to add to my soil is some type of fertilizer. And like I said, I was using soil that had fertilizer in it, but you're cheating yourself that way. When you buy each piece, then you're winning because you know what you're adding. And your plants, I love my plants. We all put love into our plants. So we want to be able, that's just like me buying a drink that has some vitamin C or vitamin A, instead of just getting the vitamin A and taking vitamin A supplements, or, basically that's what you're doing. And the drink could have 1% vitamin A, and we're getting it when the rest is just water and sugar, or I don't know what else is in it. This is straight to the source. So that's your last thing, and it doesn't have to be this. I'm just going to start using this because it's good for when you get plants bare root on the male, or when you're repotting, you want to have this to add to the soil because it helps them. It's a starter, so it starts the plant in its new pot, and so it makes sense to use this instead of going out buying soil that I was adding to this stuff, which was, I've learned, trust me, I'm learning every day something new. So yeah, that's up to you. Worm castings, whatever you want to add to your soil. And then, like I said, the soil that I do use, the cactus soil, it's about a 25%. I'll even leave it at 25%, and the rest is 75% of different types of maybe, and then this is, we'll say 70% is the orchid bark, the pumice, the charcoal, the sand, and then this is the 5% of some good old nutrients for the plant to start, especially when repotting, to get it so it's not in shock. It gives it a little boost. So that's what this is for. So I'm going to be starting to add this to my soil mix and not use the soil that's already treated with, that already has nutrients in it, when I could just add my own nutrients and buy each piece. And I'm actually saving money by doing all that, because this was $7.99, which is a big old bag. And this thing's going to last me forever because you only use like a half of a teaspoon for that, for when you're repotting. So it's just a little bit. And then the charcoal, I believe, was $4. The soil was $4, believe it or not. The orchid bark, $4. The sand was about $4. I think they all ran about $4 each. Mind you, when I buy the stuff that's already mixed, I spend a lot of money, and I only get a little bit. Then I end up running out and have to get more. So this is going to last me for a while. And so this is a good mix for a Sansevieria. Like I said, you don't have to use each brand. I'm just telling you what I like to use. And once again, all my plants are indoor plants. They don't get any outdoor time. And that's about it. I'm in Sacramento, California, and that's, this is what works for me. They are, once again, all indoor plants, so I try to give them as much love as I can. But until next Sunday, I hope everyone enjoys their Sansevieria Sunday. And if you don't have a Sansevieria yet, you need to try to find one because they're on eBay, they're on Etsy. If you don't have access to them, but get you one. They're so fun and loving. And I just gave you a good mixture to use. And like I said, you don't got to use the names that I use. Just, you can use what each one, whatever name it comes, each one comes with, like, there's different types of charcoals, different brands of charcoal, different brands. So different brands for different people, different strokes. So thank you so much. Hope everyone has a blessed week. Bye.